A CM-exclusive cut-down version of their highly individual Phonec virtual synthesizer, Psychic Modulation's Phonec CM, is inspired by, and we quote, the mystique of those video logos heard at the beginning of 80s films on VHS. Ideal for synthwave, techno, ambient, lo-fi and other texturally sensitive genres, Phonec CM generates an endless array of dusty, wobbly, retro-styled pads, leads, basses, arps and effects. In this video we'll take you on a whistle-stop tour of Phonec CM, showing off some of the evocative sounds it can make along the way. Phonec CM features two main oscillators, a sub-oscillator and a noise oscillator. Oscillators 1 and 2 can each output one of 11 waveforms, including all the analog standards, sine, triangle, saw, etc., as well as the more colourful likes of cluster, organ and bell. They're blended in various ways, which we'll come back to shortly. The octave setting transposes both oscillators together by up to 2 octaves down or 3 up. The tuning of oscillator 2 is offset from oscillator 1 using the semitone menu and tune knobs, the first covering an octave either way, the second dialing in up to 50 cents of detune up or down. The re-trigger button resets the phase of the oscillators with each new note, adding an attack to the sound that's particularly effective for leads and basses. The drift knob applies gentle random detuning, emulating the often desirable voltage fluctuations of vintage analog synths. With the pulse wave loaded into either oscillator, the width control adjusts the pulse width. The menu above the re-trigger button determines the way in which the two main oscillators are mixed or blended. Set to mix, they're independently level adjusted in the mixer. In ring mode, the oscillator outputs are multiplied for ring mod style effects. In sync mode, the pitch of oscillator 2 is synced to that of oscillator 1, particularly useful with LFO modulation of oscillator 2. In X-wave mode, the oscillator mix is modulated very fast, resulting in a hybrid waveform. The other three modes, AND, OR and XOR, bring the oscillators together using simulated logic gates for extreme and harsh tones. When any one of them is selected, the logic knob appears. This controls the degree of unpredictability introduced into the logical operations at work, but all you really need to know is that it's there to be experimented with. Phonec CM's two main oscillators are bolstered from below by a slaved sub-oscillator that tracks the pitch of oscillator 1 an octave down. The only adjustable parameters of the sub-oscillator are its waveform, choose from sine, square and triangle, and volume, which is handled in the mixer. The mixer section racks up level controls for the two main oscillators, the sub-oscillator and Phonec CM's noise oscillator. The actual effect of the OSC1 and OSC2 level knobs depends on the selected blending mode. Simple volume adjustment in mix mode, pseudo wave shaping in X-wave mode, etc. But the sub and noise knobs are straightforward volume pots. The noise oscillator outputs white noise, shaped using the associated high and low pass filters. Clicking the EXT button switches the whole synth to external input mode. Now an external audio signal can be routed in from another channel in the host DAW for processing with the melt, chorus and echo shifter effects, enabling Phonec CM's evocative retro tape wobble to be worked into any sound. Phonec CM's oscillators feed into a dual filter comprising a 12 or 24 dB resonant low pass and a 12 dB high pass arranged in series, with the oscillator filter mix set in the menu at the top of the filter section. The LPF and HPF knobs control their cutoff frequencies. The low-pass filter offers a choice of 4 models, A, B, C and D, each with its own particular sound. The key knob sets the low-pass filter cutoff frequency to track incoming note pitch. Turn it clockwise or anti-clockwise to have the filter open up as the note pitch rises or falls. The high-pass filter is non-resonant by default, intended mainly for reduction of low-end rumble, but clicking the button below its cutoff knob sets it to the same resonance as the low-pass and also activates key tracking for it. The SEP button adds a further filter stage offset from the low-pass filter frequency by the knob above for almost vowel-like sounds. Finally, the ENV knob applies filter or amp envelope modulation, chosen from the menu below, to the low-pass filter's cutoff frequency. gain overdrives the input or output as determined by the pre-post setting below for volume compensated distortion. The master section houses a range of global controls for altering the general behavior of the synth. Phonec CM is 4-voice polyphonic, but setting it to mono or legato mode lowers polyphony to a single voice, the latter requiring all notes to be released for the envelopes to re-trigger. The default 1-octave pitch bend range can be lowered down to 1 semitone, and the portamento knob controls the glide time between notes. The pan pot positions the output in the stereo field, and the track knob dials in keyboard panorama tracking. Fully clockwise, notes move from left to right in the stereo field as they increase in pitch. Anti-clockwise, that note pan mapping is inverted. Phonec CM's unique melt effect is key to its retro VHS style sound, gently modulating pitch and amplitude in 2 different modes. Mode A uses a simple drifting modulation, while Mode B uses a more complex dual modulation more akin to wow and flutter. Simply turn the knob clockwise to increase the drift and instability. The circuit and tape modes differ in that the former is applied to the main oscillators directly, while the latter is placed at the end of the signal chain post-filter and effects. Tape mode is mainly meant for use in external mode as discussed earlier. The full version of Phonec lets you adjust various melt parameters. The echo shifter effect combines pitch shifting and feedback delay in a single module. The delay can work in regular stereo or ping-pong modes, and the bass synced delay time is shortened or extended with the length knob, which can be freely swept when step is deactivated for manual modulation. The pitch shifter is brought into play with the shift knob, and the phase control mixes the original and pitch shifted delays. Crank the feedback for dub-style build-ups, ripe for filtering with the high and low pass damping filters. The two-voice chorus effect is great for thickening up basses, pads and other sounds. It has no controls though. To get your hands on those, you'll need to upgrade to the full Phonec. Phonec CM features plenty of modulation sources with which to bring movement to your patches. All of them, apart from the amp and filter envelopes and sequencer, are activated and edited in the modulation section. Click the name of a source to edit it, and the power button below to turn it on and off, and select the parameter to be modulated from the target menu. While the amp and filter envelopes are hardwired to their stated destinations, two further envelopes are available for free assignment. All four envelopes are ADSRs, and all but the amp envelope can be inverted at the click of a button for downward modulation. The envelope T slider stretches or compresses the attack, decay and release stage lengths when dragged above or below the center point. The envelope V slider determines the amount by which velocity modulates the envelope or target parameter. For the amp envelope, setting V to 0 makes every note play at full velocity, regardless of actual input velocity. For the filter envelope, V sets the depth of filter cutoff modulation by velocity. And for the assignable envelopes, V adjusts velocity modulation of envelope depth. The two monophonic LFOs are identical, offering a wide range of waveforms, up to 10 seconds of fade-in, re-triggering and phase adjustment. They can run free from 0.02 to 20 Hz or synced to host. And while the depth knob sets the modulation amount, lighting up the subtle button pulls it back for instant taming. Phonec CM's unique high-frequency oscillator, HFO, enables audio rate modulation of oscillator pitch, frequency and amplitude, as well as filter cutoff and pulse width, for all manner of crazy metallic and bell-like sounds. Tune the effect with the octave, semi and tune controls, and shape its movement over time with the dedicated envelope. When you're stuck for ideas, Phonec CM provides instant inspiration with the randomize buttons in the oscillator, filter, modulation and sequencer sections. Click one to have the controls in that section or the currently selected modulator set to random values. If you come across a setup for a particular section that you like but you want to keep randomizing, use the copy function to store it on the pasteboard, then retrieve it or transfer it to another preset with the paste function. Phonec CM's arpeggiator and step sequencer work hand in hand to generate modulated sequences from single notes and held chords of up to 4 notes, cycling in sync with the host DAW. The arpeggiator runs in up, down, then down or random directions with up to 4 octaves of range. Playback speed is adjusted with the rate menu, and clicking the 1/2 button switches to triplet timing. The gate knob shortens the arpeggiated notes when turned anti-clockwise, and the velocity mode dictates whether incoming note velocity is applied to each arpeggiated note individually or all equally set by the first note played. Activating the hold button freezes any played notes up to the maximum polyphony of 4 until deactivated. This even works when the arpeggiator is turned off, holding notes at their amp envelope sustain level. The sequencer modulates pitch, amplitude and filter cutoff over up to 8 steps at rates up to 1/32 of a beat. Activated steps in the top grid shift the pitch up or down by the amount selected in the range menu. while the height of each step entered in the bottom grid represents its velocity, modulating the filter and amplitude according to their individual depth settings. The glide knob controls portamento for all three modulated parameters, from discrete steps fully counterclockwise to smooth and bendy clockwise. Phonec CM is a complete and powerful instrument in its own right, but the full Phonec adds to its feature list with unlimited polyphony, 4 more filter types and a TB303 filter emulation, a 3-band EQ, editing of the melt and chorus effects, aftertouch modulation, a polyphonic third LFO, 128 presets and more. It costs £65 and you can get it at www.psychicmodulation.com.